That is your twin, Guanxik. Of course you found a man that's just like you. Right down to having a cantankerous mother. It's the way that he's so used to the women in his life crying uncontrollably. Hey guys, it's your girl Aisha, aka Geek XX Chic, and we are back with another reaction to When Life Gives You Tangerines. We're now on to episode 8, which is called The Moon Wanes, Yet the Young Heart Remains. So the last episode, we've kind of jumped a bit forward now. Asun is now in her middle age along with Guanxik. Their eldest daughter, Gumyoung, is in high school or university. She's in university now. She had dated the rich boy that we remember being introduced to, but it looks like they broke up when he went into the military. And now it looks like he's trying to win her back, but she's, I don't even know what's going on with her actually in that regard, but that's kind of the situation with him. And then their younger son, Young, is going through a bit of trouble at school. It looks like he's a bit of a alternate entrepreneur, shall we say. And it's a little bit of a source of contention right now with his family, but nothing crazy. And I think, oh, and of course, Asun, she managed to become the village president, or village chief. She'd been deputy chief for a long time, but after some very poor management of a certain Olympic proposal, the old useless chief is now out, and Asun has finally realized a dream that she's had since she was very young. So that part was quite heartwarming. So yeah, let's get to continue on with Asun's story, or potentially we might be going into Gumyoung's story here, because I realized maybe about 3 episodes ago that Gumyoung is the one who's now narrating her mom's story. So I think that's very interesting, considering what we saw way back in episode 1, that Asun was what looks like in potentially a retirement setting. So yeah, interesting to see why it's kind of like we do get Asun's point of view sometimes, but a lot of the narration now is starting to be from Gumyoung. So anyway, interesting little thing that I noticed, but let's jump into this episode. But just before I do, a reminder that if you'd like to be in the know of when I release episodes, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, as well as the notification bell. And also that if you'd like to see uncut reactions to this particular show, you can do that on my Patreon. The link is in my bio if you'd like to check it out. All right, out of the way, let's get into the episode right now. Is that gonna work?
돈 퍼가는 걸 눈 감아줬었대요.
아니 그건 내가 번 거.
네가 뭘 해서 벌었는데? 너 과외했지?
She's got you there. She's got you there.
돈 좀 훔쳐가도 봐줬다는 거예요.
돈 없다고 다 훔쳐요.
Right? Why don't you just expose your prejudice right now?
아는데 내가 뭐 그딴 걸.
얘 이상하다니까.
Oh, the fact that she doesn't want to have her body legally searched?
나 서울에서 도둑놈 쓰고 산다 그러면 우리 아빠는 속상해 죽어요.
It's true, but he's used to dealing with people mistreating people based on being poor. He will take your side no matter what, Gumyoung. Know that.
안 가고 저도 휴가가 금요일까지라 일찍 복귀.
Man said, I don't think you should take any days off.
알아들어?
Period. Stay with my daughter.
그게 아니고 금명이한테만 8번 차려가지고.
That sounds like his daughter. Yep.
너 뭐 하나 줘?
He's like, damn, he really is living my life. Stop calling me 아버지.
저 그럼 아저씨
Period.
조심히 내려가세요.
But Guanxik actually feels your pain.
소주금 귀신이 씌었나 못 넘게 짓거리질 않는다고.
Just like you.
못 넘게 짓거리질 않아. 준비.
Guanxik is terrified. Sorry, I think your daughter might have already been deflowered of her own choice.
너 가.
He's like, I'm back to hating you. You'll understand when you have your own daughter, sir. That is your twin, Guanxik. Of course you found a man that's just like you. Right down to having a cantankerous mother.
대치동 오전이 대리시험 구한다고 소문이라도 내봐. 너나 나나 똥바가지 써는 거야. 나는 반지로 도둑 맞았고 도둑녀는 걔야.
Yeah, that woman is evil.
내가 조질 것이냐 조짐을 당할 것이냐.
You know what? I'm not even mad at her for doing it, because what can you do? Are you going to accuse somebody of a ring that you already said was stolen? You should get stolen from.
엄마야, 그게 요 있네. 그게 다름 아닌 요 있었네.
오해 미안하다고. 아줌마 지금 뭐 하는 거냐고.
All right, maybe just toss it outside then. Exactly. It's already missing. It's already missing. You can't miss something that's already stolen.
어차피 잃어버린 건데 뭐. 사모님
Exactly.
반지 맞았고.
That's called double indemnity. Can't do it.
니네 모르나? 난 던져.
Right? You don't know me, ma'am. You've been mistreating me for how long?
사과해.
Saguahe, exactly. Okay, bye.
전화 안 하냐?
Yeah, don't make her have to say it again. She got nothing to lose, girl. And she's got a lot of, you know she got a lot on you.
너 왜 전복 진짜. 전복 처리 중요해? 맨날 허리 아프다며.
But you're more important. Her kids are more important than her backaches.
왜 맨날 돈이 없을까?
너 때문에! 너 때문에!
가난한 엄마에게 화가 났다.
Yeah,
나
well,
때문인 줄 알아서 화가 났다.
by choice, my dear.
세상 다 알아도 엄마 아빠만 모르면
I mean, they'd be disappointed that you did something illegal, but they know you're not a thief, so.
옹이 없이 크는 나무는 없다고 모르게 하고
I knew she'd cry seeing him too, just because she's had the worst day ever.
가.
You know your dad's not the complaining type. It's a good thing he's used to someone cussing him out constantly. Just for being there.
이럴 거면 밥은 왜 같이 먹어? 그냥 각자 얘기해.
Right? It's like neither of you wants to talk about what you want to talk about. Someone's gonna have to give.
나도 유학 가고 싶고 그지 같은 아르바이트 안 하고 싶고 별거 그냥 막 다 하고 싶은데 나만 이기적인 거니까
Everyone's allowed to be a little selfish sometimes.
죄책감이 발목을 잡아. 내가 뭘 더 좀 하고 싶은 게 왜 미안해야 될 일이야?
That's a good question. You should be asking yourself that. Have your parents ever made it seem like you shouldn't?
다 해.
Mm-hmm.
아버지 아직 여기 있잖아.
Exactly. His middle name is Steelheart. Man is very, very... Picked it on well for you. Because you love your squid.
군말이 만나지 말고
He's not over that soldier. He's a little bit too much like me. I don't know. That's why I don't trust him.
왜? 너무 땅이 쪘어?
짜증나.
That's her way of saying she loves you.
뭔데? 그래서 아빠는 온다는 거야, 만다는 거야.
Poor man's like, I don't know what's going on right now. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what I've done wrong.
그래도 나는 뭐 스케줄 없어?
She's so spoiled. Exactly. Spoiled in the sense of she doesn't know what it is to lose a parent so young and how lucky she is to have a father that's around enough to want to visit her.
아빠 보면 쓱내지 말고.
Right? Can you not at least do that, Gum-young? You're gonna regret it. Wave. Open your hand. Thank you. That's exactly what he still sees. You're always daddy's baby. His first baby.
더 털어가. 주렁주렁 다 털려.
Oh, the man with the onata.
이제 서비스 되는데
그 서비스.
그술 먹으면 다 털려요. 막 먹고 인절미더라고.
Oh my god! She really did know her! I would have never made that connection. You see? What you put out there comes back to you. Oh, she's the one who gave them the food.
속상하니까. 언니도 가방 털리면 속상하니까. 그게 다가.
Yeah, sometimes people just do the right thing. But see, folks, it took a whole generation for that to come back, but it did. What you put out there comes back.
언니 저녁 때 가 나오지도 않았어.
너 뺐다.
Yeah, it's true.
진짜 옛날
And she wasn't born yet, but she was there. She's wearing the ring now. Did she actually get arrested? Well, she tried to warn you. Oh wow, he really is Guanchik. This is Guanchik 2.0.
진짜 북한 진짜
Those are your family. I mean, I know, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. I know it's a very contentious situation between the North and the South, and I'm not from there. But it's crazy to me that there are literally people who, like, it's their second cousins and aunts and uncles, and this war is just torn you apart. Get on the train! Get on the train!
입장하겠습니다.
금명아.
Are you getting ready because you want to, man? What's going on?
엄마의 사랑은
It's the way that he's so used to the women in his life crying uncontrollably.
내 이야기도 동화가
I
될 수
mean,
있을까?
if you married who I think you married, then he's very similar to your dad, which is...
너는 진짜 큰 시인이 될 것 같아. 큰 시인.
That's right.
근데 나도 시 하나 써줘. 제목 양관식으로.
He wants personal treatment, thank you.
누가 알았어.
Okay, still the same writing contest. You should submit something, son. They can't stop you.
학교 간두고 처음 본다 야. 애들도 다 너 궁금해해. 무사 동창회도 한다고.
Why would she? She didn't get to graduate, remember?
동창회 없어. 중퇴면 주소록이 없나?
She didn't drop out.
아니 집에 많이.
Poor girl.
보내 못 봐.
You have nothing to be ashamed of. That's what sucks.
엄마는
Baby's cute.
그만한 애들을 못
Oh, her son. Yeah, you never get over that.
감사합니다. 잘 먹겠습니다.
그래, 많이 먹어라, 많이.
Is that how old their son would have been? Probably. Both still grieving him in their own way.
동명이가 계속 자랐다.
I get that. But for A-son, it was the same age. Very interesting. Again, showing how different grieving is.
여러 가지로 유학도 나한테 뺏기고. 내가
She gave it
뺏긴 거야?
up.
양보한 거지.
Exactly. Remember, you're going because of I decided you go. You know she's talented and smart. But did she cuss you off?
우리 반 극장은 가짜 극장.
That's right.
크림빵이 100개 있어도 2만 개는 100점은.
She didn't write a single thing wrong. Why you mad? Y'all really think you can cheat this girl like she's stupid?
기어코 해를 찾아 고개를 드는
Exactly. That's how you gotta live life.
기어코 빛을 찾아내는
Exactly.
사람이었다.
Because you know what? Life's always gonna throw some shade at you, but you gotta work to find the light sometimes. What would you tell that girl today, hey, son? That it was gonna be okay? That the world wasn't ending? But thank God A-son is not scared to follow her heart.
그러니까 인생 고 해봐야 아는 거라니까.
Exactly. Okay, so this is where all the Hanryos are going to be able to sell instead of having to have a cart. That makes so much more sense.
다른 사람을 대할 땐 연애 편지
Right, but your family, somehow, you just can't find the words, huh?
배려하고 공들였다.
Why is that?
아 뭐라 그러는데? 엄마도 같이 좀 기분 좋고 싶어.
She loves you so much.
만지 그냥 말이라도 해보려니까 내가 진짜 화딱지나게 왜 이래? 네가 그지야? 부모 없어? 왜 남한테
Her mom does have a lot of pride.
접어. 아, 나도 접고 싶다 접고 싶어. 근데 접겠어?
Both so stubborn.
100만 번 고마운 은인에겐 낙서장 대하듯 했다.
Yes, you did. But unfortunately, a lot of us do that to our parents without recognizing that they're not going to be around forever. And it's not that hard to do. Talk to people the way you'd like to be talked to.
그거 다 하면 얼만데?
She wants you to get out of the rain.
저는 그렇게 하고 싶은 게 많고 나는 또 그걸 못 해주면 똑 죽겠는 걸.
She knows.
그래서 뭐래?
Yeah.
유학 가고 싶다고 울어? 짜증난다고 울지.
Not exactly, but yes.
애들도 주지 마.
주지 마. 너만 먹어.
Ungrateful miscreants. So they did that to give her more opportunities. But what about their son, though? Did he want to move? Does he have a little girlfriend? Oh, she's dreaming. Seems like she does this at most of the main crossroads in her life. She dreams of her mom. But I get that. So many times she must have wanted to talk to her. If she lived, there's times you could talk through, what do you do right now when your 20-something-year-old daughter is so hard-headed?
속상해. 나도 친정엄마한테 속 터놓고 싶은 거 너무 많아.
Can imagine.
관식이랑은 아직도 서로 얘기 안 해?
That's... can't imagine.
동명이 얘기는 안 해.
That is so hard.
말해.
Yeah.
퍼내.
Mm-hmm.
파도로 억겁을 보내고 산다.
Can't bury it.
잠깐 잊고 사는 거지. 잠깐.
That is the way it goes, they say. Mixed memories in that house, hey?
내일의 뙤약볕으로
That was her son. I wasn't sure because the perm is new. It's a choice. So glad I was past the age of being able to smoke on planes. Oh, that would have been atrocious. I'm allergic to smoke, so I would have been dying. Aww. He's like, you need this more than I do. The judgment. You're not even old enough to know what that word means.
날아올랐다. 엄마의 꿈을 씨앗처럼 품고.
Yeah, did you swallow their dreams? Their dream was to give you a good life. Both their kids. That's what they wanted.
웃겨? 지금 이게 웃겨?
네.
얼마나 기똥차.
그래서 신나?
Yes. At least she's not crying this time. Normally she cries when she's happy.
나는 니들이 날면 꼭 내가 나는 것 같아. 내가.
That's how it is for parents. Why? I don't blame you though.
너 애순이 허락은
May as well get it.
맡았나?
Look, A-Sun's getting all her dreams come true. Maybe not the way she wanted it, but she deserved to have an award.
오빤 적는 거는 이거는 골백 번을 떠들어도 안 써놓으면 꼭 있다고 꼭.
Why are you yelling at me, bro?
우리 학교에서 강원이 나왔는데 애를 못 찾아. 나 교장실 가서 뭐라고 하냐고.
Just gonna have to be a mystery that never gets solved. Ah, it was her poem. That's the name of the episode. Look at how those old Henrios are causing trouble all the time. All the time. We love it. Don't stop. All right, well, that was a sweet episode, honestly. Just, I think the things that stood out to me with this is just how complicated the relationships can be between parents and children. And, you know, it's frustrating to see Gum-young like this right now, but I somewhat understand it. I was saying that I feel like Gum-young to me reminds me more so of A-sun's mother. Was it Gwanri? Yeah, Gwanri? Something like that. I can't remember exactly how you pronounce it. My apologies. But you know how her mom, A-sun's mom, was kind of all bristles on the outside, but she was really very sweet and tender-hearted on the inside. That's the same thing that that's what I get from Gum-young. You know, like she said, I love the description she said of, you know, every time I wanted to say how I really felt to my parents, the tender, soft, you know, more emotional things, it would come out with barbs. You know, it'd come out being so anything but sweet and kind, right? And not because she necessarily meant it to be that way, but she's so scared of being vulnerable. And unfortunately, that is something she inherited from her mom, right? Because A-sun is only vulnerable with one person, and that's Guanxik. And even then, it's been in like the most private of times. You know, she doesn't like to show that side of herself. She doesn't like to be vulnerable in public. And I feel like there's a lot of arguments about whether or not parents should be fully open with their kids. I think it's generational for sure. Because I think of my parents, and they weren't people who showed a lot of vulnerability to me. And I think it's because they were raised that way, right? They probably also, you know, my parents' parents would have been, you know, born circa the time of, like my parents would have been, you know, they would have gone through World War I, World War II. I mean, my family was from the Caribbean, so they didn't necessarily experience the Great Depression the same way that, say, Western parents did. But the point is, it wasn't the easiest of times. They went through a lot of rough times, and a lot of what they grew up with was, you don't tell your kids your problems. You don't show them that. It's our job to shoulder that and, you know, just let them see that side of us and not worry about it. But I feel like our generation and then, you know, younger generations like Gen Z, etc., they're starting to recognize that maybe it isn't the best thing to always hold that vulnerability back, because then kids sometimes feel like they can't be vulnerable with their parents. They sometimes feel like they have to always hold things in and hold their problems in, when really they should communicate with them and see if there's any way they can help each other. And yeah, with Gum-young, you know, she loves her parents. She recognizes how much they've done for her. She does somewhat see how hard they work for her, but she also kind of resents the fact that her life isn't easier. And I understand that, right? When you grow up a certain way, when you grow up without having a lot of the things that you like, especially if you grow up around people who you see seemingly getting everything that they want, it's easy to feel like, you know, why didn't my parents make more money? Why didn't they do better? And the worst part is that at least from what we're seeing in this show, a lot of the people around, Gumyoung and around, her society, they keep kind of blaming her family for being poor as if it's something that's easy to get out of. It's really not, right? A lot of systems, a lot of countries have systems where it's very difficult for the poor to move to a different class. Not impossible, but not easy. And yeah, it's true that in the case of Aesun and Gwanshik, they did make some decisions that made it more difficult. Not in Aesun's case. I'll say in Aesun's case, she really just got dealt a lot of really, really crappy hands and she did the best she could. But Gwanshik, yes, truly, if he hadn't married Aesun, if he decided to listen to his family and try to marry up, marry a woman who had more money or status, or if he had gone to schools, I remember he had the he had the, it was a scholarship, the sports scholarship. If he had rode that out, maybe done somewhat well, he probably could have gotten into a decent university, etc., etc. The point is, he could have possibly had a life where he made more money and would have been more successful financially. And yes, if he'd gotten married later, when he had already had a career established and some money, and then again married a woman with money, yeah, their kids probably would have been better off. It's true. But he did what he wanted to. He followed his heart. Both Aesun and Gwanshik followed their hearts. I mean, they were young and foolish, and yes, looking back, they probably realized that maybe they could have done things differently. But as I've said multiple times, they've gotten something that is so rare in this world, and that they found each other's soulmates. They love each other so much, and they have each other's backs unequivocally, and there's trust and there's tenderness and there's care. And that is, as I said, I wish it was something that every marriage came with, but it doesn't, right? We've seen a lot of examples in this show of people who are not in loving marriages. So they really did luck out in that regard. But yeah, the downside, unfortunately, of getting married young, starting a family almost immediately, is that things were harder. They had to work uphill. Gwanshik's family gave zero assistance. They were so mad at him for rebelling that they refused to help him. I mean, I don't know how much they could have really given him, but they didn't really help him. And then we see that all the help actually came from Aesun's family. And even that was only so much, right? Because they weren't really rich either. So all that to say that it was hard. And yes, they made decisions that didn't necessarily benefit their kids in the long run financially, but those kids always had a loving home. They've always had a safe, warm place to live. They've had parents that are willing to do anything for them. And in the case of Gumyoung, because Gumyoung, I think she's so symbolic for her parents because A, she's the firstborn, B, her conception, the way she was conceived and everything was kind of very much the catalyst to why the two of them are why Gwanshik and Aesun ended up being together and staying together. And it's very much Aesun's, it is a vicarious situation, right? Aesun was her mom's firstborn as well, and so many dreams were placed on her because her mother couldn't have that life, and Aesun didn't get a chance to do that. And then now they have their firstborn daughter, and Aesun was determined from the second she was born, okay, I didn't get it, my mom didn't get it. Oh, this daughter has to get it, right? She really does. And so that's somewhat a bit of pressure on Gumyoung, but not really, because Gumyoung's always been a good student and she does want to do things for herself as well. But there is a bit of a special place, I guess you could say, in the parents' heart for her, because she is the only girl. And again, because of Aesun's background, there is this special thing there. And so I feel like because of that, just because I want to touch a little bit on Eumyoung and how he's clearly jealous of, and I feel like, unfortunately, I don't think it's anything malicious, but I think Aesun does a little bit too much of, oh my Gumyoung, look how good she is, oh she's so smart, my beautiful daughter, my wonderful daughter. I said this in the last episode, parents have to be very careful when you have multiple children, especially if you got one child that seemingly makes life easier and then maybe a child that is a little bit more challenging. Comparing them is not healthy, and it's not the right thing to do. It doesn't really inspire one child by saying that you're not good enough because of this one is better. It's not a good feeling, and it honestly usually causes sometimes those kids to rebel even harder and to do even worse because they're so upset about A, the comparison, but also if they feel like they can't get attention or the same attention from their parents, they sometimes do those things or rebel and do things because it gets them negative attention. Right? When you're younger, attention is attention. You don't care if it's because you're getting praised or getting scolded. At least they're paying attention to you, right? So anyway, I do hope that Aesun eventually figures out that she should be a little bit more mindful of what's going on with Eumyoung and not just think he's a problem child. Kids don't act out the way he is for no reason, right? There's something there, and I don't feel like either of his parents are particularly paying as much attention to him as they probably should, but we'll have to see. But anyway, Back to Gumyoung, we see that this whole thing with the scholarship is really bothering her as well because she got the mark, she was accepted, but it costs money. The scholarship was for the entry to study abroad, but apparently it doesn't cover her I guess, the transportation and possibly her living expenses. So she, of course, turned it down because she didn't want to put that burden on her parents. She feels like her parents sacrificed too much for her. She hates seeing that her mom works so hard. She hates seeing that her dad goes out to sea even when the weather is bad. Like, she knows how hard they work, and she feels guilty because she feels like, if I didn't have so many dreams and ambitions, then maybe they'd have more. But A-sun and Guanxik, they love their kids. They want their kids to do whatever. And again, a lot of this is transference because of A-sun not being able to fulfill her dreams when she was young. But honestly, most parents, most healthy, emotionally healthy parents, that's what they want for their children. They want their children to do well or do better than they did if they have the opportunity to do that. That was my family. Both my parents did quite well, mind you, but still, they wanted the best for me. They never were like, oh, that costs too much. Like, they tried to find a way to make me, to have me fulfill whatever it is that I wanted to do if they could do it. And that's what parents do. Loving parents look out for their kids. So yeah, right now A-sun's too young, or not A-sun, sorry, Gumyoung's too young to recognize that. And I feel like a lot of kids don't recognize that till they either get a lot older or until they have children of their own. But I'm hoping that she figures out sooner than later to be a little bit kinder because, again, she's acting this way just because that's part of growing up, yes, but also because, as I said in the episode, she's had the luxury of having her parents her whole life. Her parents have always been there. Yes, she experienced loss in the sense of losing her little brother, but that's not the same as losing a parent, right? Losing a parent, losing a foundational piece of your life that is there to support you and be your rock and protect you, that is a privilege, and not enough people in this world recognize how fortunate you are if you were able to get through your childhood, all of your years when you needed to be protected and looked after. If you had two parents that were alive and able to take care of you, that is a privilege and a blessing, and you should be grateful because not everybody gets that. And A-sun definitely didn't have that. She lost both of her parents before she was even in puberty. So A-sun, she has a much different viewpoint on how fortunate she is and her gratitude. I love how this episode brought out the fact that she always finds the sun. She always finds the good things in life no matter what. And I think that's because she had to. Thank goodness though, right? Imagine how dour her life would have been if she'd only focused on how many horrible things happened to her growing up. Right? The fact that she is, like I said, her name has sun in it for a reason. She is such generally a bright presence. And so anyway, I do hope that eventually that Gumyoung realizes the privilege she has of having two parents that have always been there. And when she recognizes that, she can stop kind of taking for granted that she'll have the time to talk to them nicely, right? Because that's what it comes down to. Right now, she's acting this way towards her parents because she has the luxury and also unfortunately, the naivety of believing that they're always going to be around for her to make amends, right? That's what you think when you're young. A lot of times we treat people the way we do, especially the people closest to us, because we know that their love is unconditional. And also because we always think, oh, I'll have plenty of time to make it up. I'll have plenty of time to be better. You don't know, right? God forbid, but in her case, her mom could drop dead tomorrow. Guanxik could drop dead tomorrow. Does she really want the last thing she said to them was her scolding them? But she's, she doesn't really have the ability to think about that yet. And like I said, I do hope she figures it out sooner than later. I mean, we even see in most of the flash forwards that she's quite sharp with her tone towards her mom and towards her dad. But I'm hoping that she gets to the point where she can at least learn to be quiet if she has nothing nice to say. You know what I'm saying? But thankfully, her parents kind of take it in stride. I think they know that a lot of that comes from A-sun, to be fair, because A-sun can be that way. But thankfully, they kind of know that they know that their daughter loves them. You know what I mean? I think they don't think they think at all that Gumyoung doesn't love them. But I do wonder if sometimes I hope they understand that she does appreciate them, because I think that's the one thing they might not know for certain is, does she really see how hard we're working for her? Does she really appreciate it? Because it feels sometimes like she doesn't. But anyway, so that was kind of Gumyoung this episode. We also saw a little bit of her and the guy that she's with. Apparently he's been dumped 8 times. That's so funny. I thought that whole scene with Guanxik and this man, because that is him, right? It's basically another version of him. And as they say, daughters, they often marry men that model after their dads. And he was the one to tell this guy, like, she watched me growing up. Like, she knows what kind of a husband I was to her mom. So that's a high bar, and it's true, but it's kind of like, but it also looks like she literally found, she literally found you, Dad. She did find your clone. So of course, I love how as soon as he looked at this kid and he realized how similar he was to him, he just flashed back to exactly how Gum-young was conceived, and he was like, oh heck no. If he's anywhere as good as I was, no, I'm not ready to be a grandpa yet. But anyways, it looks like they're being, whatever is happening with them, Gum-young is being a lot more cautious, shall we say, than her mother was. So anyways, obviously, because if she's studying abroad and he's in the military, then they're being a little bit more sensible. But anyway, we did see that there was a wedding. Her dad was about to walk her down the aisle. We didn't see who she married, but I'm going to assume it was the guy we've seen, because we've seen way too much of it for, I'd be surprised if it wasn't him. Let's put it that way. So yeah, I mean, she ends up, because she kept saying that, yeah, I thought I'd be so different than my mom, but I'm actually very similar to her. So she had to have married a guy that was just like her dad, right? Most likely. But it looks like the difference is that at least she got her formal education, right? She's doing all the things that Asun wanted to do and also wanted for her children. And so that's the most important part. But we're seeing that things are still kind of rolling out for Asun as well, right? From getting the poetry award from school, even though, you know, technically she's not a student, to finally her and the Hanryos buying their own spot so that they don't have to keep moving their stalls around, which I can just imagine some of those Hanryos have got to be in their 70s now. Imagine carrying around all this stuff and having to labor around like that in your old age. So now they've got a permanent spot they can be in, and they can continue. Although, wait, did she sell that now? Now that I'm thinking about it, I just remembered that they moved to the city. So did she? I wonder. Well, anyways, maybe she left it to the aunties. But either way, that was a nice thing for her, though, to have an actual place to sell out of and not have to keep, carrying around a cart. And I think that's pretty much it, right? Like, yeah, that was kind of the last win that she had. But selling the house apparently gave them enough money to allow Gum-young to do her foreign studies. And we see that Gum-young was absolutely sad about it because, well, we see that one of her teachers was willing to pay her way and I guess allow her to pay her back at some point. But her parents just did not feel good about that. They didn't want it. We've known that Asun has always been very prideful about being, about begging or feeling like she's being treated as though she's a, what's the word? I guess my generation would have said a charity case, which was, I hate that term because, getting help is not charity. It's just people helping. But anyways, we know that Asun was never about that. So they sold their place, created this opportunity for Gum-young. And we see that, again, I want to see I'm hoping at some point we hear a little bit more about the brother because Eum-young is kind of just there at the moment. But I do wonder how he feels about being uprooted from his life and brought to the city, even though that's not necessarily what he wanted. Maybe, I don't know. We don't know, actually. Maybe he'll be okay with it. But it does feel like the family absolutely makes a lot of decisions based on what Gum-young wants to do. And I can understand why Eum-young might feel a little left out or maybe overlooked because of that. But anyway, I think the only other thing I want to touch on in this episode was the fact that that Asun still can't look at boys around the age of 4 because of what happened to her son, and how Gwon-shik always looks at boys who would be the age of their son and he gives them special treatment is kind of his way of dealing with it. And again, kind of going back to that horrible episode where they lost their son, like everyone grieves differently. There's no right way to grieve. Some people, it takes them years to pick themselves up again, while others seemingly get over it quickly, but really they just have to do things to distract themselves because that's how they move on. But seeing that they're both dealing with it very differently, it's a horrible thing, as I talked about it a lot in that episode. But interesting that, it's been 15-ish years. Maybe not that long, maybe more like, because those teenagers are about 15. So sorry, more like 12-ish years since their son passed. And yeah, it's still like, they'll never get over it. That's the bottom line. Will they ever fully get over it? No. Like they'll learn to do better. Like that's what grieving is that at some point you're going to not feel the sting as keenly, but you're always going to feel sad. You're always going to feel a sense of loss. You're always going to miss them. But the intensity of that pain starts to dwindle as time goes on. And interestingly, like we heard the Hanryos talk about the fact that she can't look at 4-year-olds. And then later on, when Asun had her dream with her mother, her mom basically said, "You and Gwon-shik don't talk about him, do you?" Because obviously this is Asun's memory, so she knows that, or Asun's imagination. So of course she knows that it looks like after they both decided to move forward, they just kind of didn't talk about it, right? And not healthy, understandable, but not healthy. You need to talk about it. They both need to talk about it. Not to necessarily get everything dug up, is the way that A-Sun described it. It's like, I don't want to dig it all up, but it's not a matter of digging it all up. It's a matter of like, you've covered it up. Like she said, I buried it because the pain was too deep, but you can't bury grief. You can't bury grief. You can't. Like the fact that you can't look at a child means you have to deal with it. It still needs to be dealt with, and it's going to come out in other ways that are unhealthy if you don't. So same thing with Guan-Shik, if he should, maybe Guan-Shik might be handling it better. I don't know. Maybe he does want to talk to A-Sun about it, but knows it because she won't, because Guan-Shik's such a bottler, right? He's not someone who ever says whatever, but he knows A-Sun very well. And I think he probably feels like if A-Sun is not talking to me about it, I probably shouldn't talk to her about it. And the only reason I say this is because he's actually, the fact that he recognizes that their son would be 15 or 16 years old right now if he was still alive, says to me that he's kind of accepted the death a bit better, and that he's just talking to them and just enjoying those moments he would have had if his son was alive. And he's able to kind of just, and give those kids, all those things to me feels like, to me, he's got a healthier grip on that loss. Whereas with A-Sun, she's still frozen in that 4-year-old or 3-year-old son's time. So I just feel like, I think they need to talk. I think they should be able to, as a couple who experienced this joint loss that rocked their world, they should be able to have healthy conversations. They should be able to remember him, right? Because I feel like Guan-Shik probably feels like he can't even talk and reminisce about his son because A-Sun doesn't want to talk about it. And that's not, I don't know if fair is the right word, but it's not healthy. Let's put it that way, for them not to be able to do that. And that probably goes for the kids as well, right? It goes for their other 2 children who also are still grieving in their own way. So if no one feels safe to talk about it, it's just not healthy. And we saw a little bit of that with Gumyun, when the snobby girl, when she was trying to clinically talk about what it is for a parent to lose a child. So anyway, I do hope they get to that point and, they have that conversation and they kind of let all that stuff out. And then, like I said, get to the point where they can have healthy conversations and reminisce and talk about their son the way they should, in a healthy way, and remember him, because he was so much more than that horrible day, right? So anyway, another great episode as usual, and loving watching them kind of go through all these different phases of their life, and how everyone's shifting along. As I said, the only one we really haven't seen a lot of is Eun-young, so I'm wondering if we're going to even touch on his story, but I do hope we get to look into him a bit and kind of I just want to know what's going on in his head, how he feels about everything. Does he feel okay? Does he maybe feel some type of way that maybe he feels like he's been forgotten because Gumyun was the firstborn, and then the baby who died kind of took up a lot of space too. I do wonder if that's where a lot of his behavior is coming from, but hopefully we'll touch on that soon. But yes, I enjoyed this a lot. I hope you guys enjoyed watching along with me. If you did, please show some love, and I will see you in the next one.